and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix with James Junkin.
Roll Tide, baby. Back in the house. Here we are. I may have to go to Ohio State and watch our players play, but we're coming back to you.
Someday they're coming back, whatever. And Dr. Martin, and we're here today with one of my faves, and he's going to become your fave too if he's not already. You don't follow him on LinkedIn. Michael Bowman from Bowman Legacies. Welcome, Michael.
What's up? Thank you very much. It's always an honor, and I love hanging out with you all the time. And so I can't wait to get it going.
If you guys like my smile when I'm on the Risk Matrix, other times you're going to like it today because this guy makes me smile. He makes my heart sing, and he's going to make your heart sing too, because today we're going to talk about the risk of bad leadership, right? And the good types of leadership. Michael is the author of Lead from the Middle. You can get that on Amazon. We'll plug that later. But he's the author of Lead from the Middle. He's a coach, a business coach. He is a personal coach. He's coached me, which I need a lot of coaching. And so we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm going to throw it to James, and I'm going to let him talk about our sponsor today, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about what Michael does and what bad leadership looks like and all that in between.
Super excited to have you with us today. You're in the Risk Matrix, baby. This episode of the Risk Matrix is powered by Veriforce and is sponsored by ODP Business Solutions. Cut costs and run a smarter business with ODP. ODP Business Solutions lets you say goodbye to excess spending and hello to 40,000 plus like-minded businesses purchasing smarter together. Get negotiated pricing every time you shop at ODP Business Solutions. Receive actively negotiated pricing, data analytics for spend management, strategies to optimize savings, and comparisons to learn how other members shop. Visit veriforcenetwork.com/offers/ODP-business solutions to receive up to 55% off most of your office supplies.
I'm gonna start this out, and I'm actually we started talking before, and we do this frequently, James and I, but it's hard not to talk to Michael. James made a comment and it rolled to Michael, and I was going to start it and give it right to Michael, but I'm going to say, James, let's talk a little bit about what you were saying about if it doesn't come from the top and the people think it's bullshit, right? Then how are we ever going to get leadership into the middle, which is Michael's wheelhouse?
You know, in my experience, and I have been the CEO of something since probably 1997 in various different businesses. You know, CEOs get very insulated, and the larger an organization is, the further away you get from the process, the less you really know what's going on. And we always think that our ideas are great, our executive team's perfect, you know, our business plan, including that related to safety, all comes down from heaven above and out our mouths, and people in the field are just like, great, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And really what they're saying is these people have no clue. You know, they don't know how to do our job, but they're over here telling me the book says you're doing it wrong. So there's this big gap between executive leadership and the guys down in the front lines, the folks that are doing the work. And I've always said, you know, if you don't get your frontline leadership on board, whatever your initiative, you're going to fail.
I think it's a twofold problem that we're seeing all over the place. Companies get so big. At Bowman Legacies, we call that the anaconda syndrome, because the anaconda gets so big, the head doesn't know what the tail is doing. But also, it gets so big that its body cannot handle the weight of itself. Its own infrastructure starts to collapse. So it has to go to the path of least resistance, like the trees or the water. And that's why when you're watching these nature shows, they don't go out to the fields or the jungles really to find the huge anacondas. They either have to be in the water or up in the trees, because they actually have to do that to stay alive. And that's what businesses do. We end up coming, we know it works. We've been doing it for years. We're going to stick in this path. And that's when innovation goes right out the door. And the problem that we see is we don't have enough CEOs and executives taking that intentional time to get in the dirt with their people. But we also don't have enough people in the middle saying, you know what, they can't do it all. And I have to take that responsibility here in the middle. I'm not the CEO. I'm not the president. I'm not the king. I don't make the major decisions, but we don't have enough people there saying, I'm going to take responsibility over my decisions, over my choices, and I'm going to lead on a high level so that the people that surround me can feel that and we can move forward cohesively as one. And I tell you, it's a twofold problem. And so often, those of us in the middle that are down here, you know, we're complaining about what CEOs and presidents and executives are doing. And then the president and executives don't know what the disconnect is. It's because they're not getting in the dirt and they're not actually feeling physically what their people are going through. So it's a twofold problem. And I really believe that my book touches both of those things, man, because it's all about getting in the dirt and it's all about having some empathy for one another, realizing that the business can't move forward without the CEO and it can't move forward for the people that they're in the middle.
Right. That's right. You were going to give us an example before we started of kind of how this happens, right? How do you get to frontline safety supervisor type leadership or supervisor foreman type leadership or even laborer type leadership? How do you find that? How does a culture find that voice?
It's very difficult if the whole, like James said it earlier, he's like, you know, it doesn't matter what the CEO or the president says. If those frontline people aren't on board with that same thing, you're never going to have it happen. And so there's this disconnect with accountability right now because we're in the middle of one of the largest recruiting and retention nightmares that this country has ever seen. Just getting people in the door is hard, let alone keeping them. And what we've seen is recruiters and headhunters have really muddied the waters, especially for that foreman and superintendent level of people, especially in the safety world, because man, I mean, you have an opportunity to jump ship all the time. And you can make $8 more a week and then you could jump again and make $9 more a week, you know, and a lot of people are making that their career instead of actually staying. So we have consistent and cohesive leadership. I know for me personally, what I had to do was just take ownership. You know, I was put in a position to where no one was coming to save me. No one was coming to help me. I wasn't having anyone from the executive team helping me. Nobody from the regional team was helping me. I had to fix this on my own. And so age-old great leadership concepts work. They just work. And so when you take that responsibility to learn yourself and not waiting for someone to feed it to you, and I think that's one of the biggest things is personal responsibility. If you're somewhere in the middle today, take personal responsibility. Start to be an insatiable learner and learn how to lead on a high level, because I'm telling you, it will absolutely change the dynamic of your surroundings. And when that happens, man, it takes one person to change an entire culture. I truly believe that because it's insatiable. That winning attitude is magnetic and people draw to it. Some do, right? And the bulk do, but then there's some that won't. And that's okay because you're always going to have the critics. You're always going to have someone saying, why are we doing this? We've never done this before. This is the way we've always done it. Why do we have to take care of people this way? Why do we have to go to the extra level? But that's where innovation dies with that mentality. And it's the companies that we're seeing right now, like Sargent, like there's so many other companies that are doing it and companies that I personally work for that are seeing, hey, we're asking more of these people than we ever have. We're in the most fatherless generation the world's ever seen. We ask them to be in and work on our dream and be here more than they are with the ones they love. It's now our responsibility to teach them how to work safer, how to be more efficient, and to pour more into them. And I think that if you're the greediest person on the face of the planet and you can see where that actually shows the benefits financially, you'd be on board with that so
Absolutely.
fast.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. I think you and I are brothers from another mother, right? Although I have South in the mouth, and sometimes it's hard to understand me. Maybe Dr. Martin can interpret if we need to. But Coach Saban said leadership is really this. It's getting the right people on the bus and getting them in the right seats and getting the wrong people off the bus.
Right.
Right. But once we get them on the bus and we get them to practice, they have to be coached. Talent will only get you so far. So talent gets you the interview. Talent gets you the position. But what responsibility do we have if we want to run a successful business in the marketplace as you described? And I agree, that's the marketplace. What responsibility do we have to train leaders, those leaders in the middle?
I think one of the things that's like, I think a lot of times influencers like myself, we always say you have to, right? Well, you don't have to do anything. You can keep going the way that you are, but you do have to ask yourself, look, these issues that I'm hitting right now, whether that's our EMR, our TRIFR rate, and if that's exploding and you're getting to a place to where you're having a problem, you're seeing incidents rise, and you realize you've got to do something to be marketable, in the markets. I think that you've got to start to discern, okay, we are failing here. We're making money, but that is not the sole enterprise anymore. That's not the sole matrix for moving forward. And I think it's so valuable to understand that if you build your middle leadership and you start to grow them, but you're also living by the same standards, because perception versus reality is everything. If you're asking of your people more than what you're willing to give, it's never going to work. So it has to be across the board. It can't be do as I say, not as I do. Because newer generations growing up, they just don't buy that anymore. They can smell bullshit a mile away. And if they smell blood in the water, man, it makes them back off. It's hands off now because they realize you're not who you say that you are. You see, a lot of people say that millennials are lazy and all this stuff and Gen Z this and that. That's not true. None of it's true. None of it is. It's all absolutely 110% false. What they want is more, and it's not necessarily more money. They want to be led. They want to grow. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And if you as a leader are going to be aggressive in these markets, you got to tap into that heart and soul of these people growing up and moving forward in the workforce.
So let me say this, old lingo, servant leadership, right? Servant leadership, which, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but this is kind of what you're talking about. What's the new lingo of servant leadership, and how do we get people? I'm double nickels, right? So double nickels, I'm getting to that thing where that's my lingo, but I don't think it's the lingo of the younger generations coming in the workforce. How do I show them my servant leadership in the way that they understand? And I know it's getting my boots dirty and those types of things, but is there a lingo involved? Is there a new way to show how much I care? Is it the same? I don't know.
It's consistency. These people speak a different language. It's not like, so Xers, we had catchphrases, we had all this stuff that, if you spoke our language, it mattered. These younger generations speak the language of action. They want to see it consistently. I don't think that they care if you are 98 years old and still in the workforce. If you're speaking, you have these catchphrases that nobody knows, it doesn't matter. They recognize love, they recognize integrity, they recognize honor, and that's the currency. That's the language that they speak. And when you speak that language consistently and they realize you are who you say you are and you're actually doing the thing you say you're going to do, man, hook, line, and sinker. They are for you and they get it and they want to move forward. And generationally, I have to say this, and I say this all the time. I'll never forget my father saying, "You guys, your generation is so disrespectful." Well, I was raised right next to my grandmother. My grandma lived right next door. So I could literally walk my little self down and talk to grandma when I was upset. And I sat she had this porch swing and I'm on the porch swing with her. And I said, Grandma, Dad says we're so disrespectful and lazy. And my grandma said, Michael, that's what your grandpa used to say about your dad's generation. That they were so disrespectful and lazy. And so as a little kid, I realized, wait a minute, the disrespectful and lazy generation is not the problem. It's the new generation is willing to question your actions and willing to point at you and go, wait a minute, didn't you just say this? And aren't you doing this? And that comes across as an older person disrespectful. It's not. What we have to do as an older generation, especially in the CEOs and president realm, is be willing to be accountable to the guy who's leaning on the shovel.
Right. You know, I see that the quickness to call out the hypocrisy. And nothing destroys a safety management system or a productive management system or a quality management system quicker than hypocrisy. I'll give you an example, right? And how this all goes across all generations. Back during COVID, you know, we had a client that had safety folks out there and they're forcing social distancing and all that and so forth. But for the workers to travel into the job site, they crammed them in like sardines on a school bus.
Yep.
Right? So hypocrisy. All the workers saying this is a bunch of crap. And they catch somebody talking out there and write them up and say, you're violating social distancing. And they're like, but you just put us on a school bus, bro. You know, where does this make sense? And that's how you destroy the cohesiveness of a team. You know, I like to say this. Task or managed. I hate that word manager. I'm not a task to be managed, bro. I'm an individual. My own thoughts, beliefs, opinions, skill sets, faults, all that. I want to be led.
Yeah.
Right? If you go back and you want to look at some of the historic battles of this country, the beaches of Normandy, nobody got managed across Omaha Beach. They got led across that beach.
Amen.
And this generation, I remind folks when they're being super critical of the younger generation, I always think it's hilarious because I'm a Gen X person and I love these battles that go on between the baby boomers and Gen Z and millennials, and we're stuck in the middle. Nobody ever thinks about us, right? And I'm like, that's cute. The baby boomer generation thinking they're not one of the most spoiled, self-entitled generations ever, right? The 1960s, just go back and YouTube that if you didn't experience it, right? You can see what I'm talking about. People are people, man. But this same generation that we're often criticized, the same ones we sent to Afghanistan.
Yep.
It's the same ones we sent to Iraq and went on this nation's longest campaign of war in history. So I have a lot of respect for this generation. Sometimes they see things a little differently than I do. Their use of technology is quicker. Their ability to consume information is faster. You know, they move at a different pace and they have needs. And we have to embrace that because from a generational standpoint, there are less of us in Gen X. This is just biological fact. We were the first generation to come about with the advent of commercially available birth control, the pill, right? So there are less Gen Xers than there are between these other two generations. So you're starting to see younger people, maybe with less experience, filling senior positions just because of lack of numbers.
Very
you
true.
know, if you're people in your 60s and 70s, the baby boomer generation are retiring, we are filling, those roles have to be filled by somebody, and there's just not enough of us. So what happens, I think, is if you want to call leadership this, in my opinion, leadership can be trained, but it's also a mentored trade. You know, I coach people sometimes in a certain way because of the way I was coached. Well, if we're losing that mentorship because of the sheer numbers of retirement and we have to put people in this, you know, that's where I think you can have folks in positions that may not have the training or experience or the practical mentorship that we benefited from in my generation. Now, I'm not saying all that training was good, Michael, you know, sometimes we came to work and it's like, why, go stand over there. Well, this is maybe the dumbest thing I ever heard of. Did I tell you to go stand over there? Okay,
Yeah.
go stand over there. If I told you to dig this hole and then fill it back up at the end of the day, that's what I said you do. You just do what you said you do. That approach is not as super effective with this new generation of people. And it wasn't that greatly effective with our generation, right?
Right.
This generation has options. So all that to come back to this point, you know, Veriforce recognized this, and we launched a frontline safety leadership course just this month. And it's designed to get people, I hate to use the word soft skills, there's a new word for that, but the leadership skills necessary combined with safety considerations to get the job done and get the job done in a safe manner. So here's my question to you. How many companies are adopting this philosophy that we need to not only empower workers that are in the middle, but we also need to provide them with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do so?
Your question is how many?
Yeah. How
I
many
mean,
people are embracing it?
not enough. That's the answer. The answer is not enough. And I'm going to emphatically put that in because we are in the recruiting nightmare. We have looked at this so linearly. It's just amazing to me how we pump the brakes and just scream recruiting nightmare. People are lazy. No one wants to work. And we're just so willing to throw those things out instead of look at data, look at trends and commonality. Like, you know, you're talking to safety people. I'll talk to you safety people right now. Look, some of you guys are all data. And then some of you guys are all like heart and soul. I've got to be in the field with my guys. But the fact of the matter is it's a balance of both.
Right.
And if you don't have that balance of the both, you don't have a good safety program. Fact. However, it's the same way with this. The narrative isn't enough of going, okay, let's look to the bottom of this and see why this is happening. And that's why I say not enough, because companies still look at, we made this much. We made this much. My wife a couple years ago bought me a book at Half Price Books. It's about this big, it's about that thick, from 1933. And it's How to Manage and Lead People from 1933. And they had the exact same problems that we do today. It talks about all these same things. So we've not changed. We're not learning from our past. And we have too many people in leadership that say, well, we made money. Well, our insurance is still covering us.
So there's a cost to leadership, right? I mean, bottom line, right? Like there's a cost to safety, there's a cost to leadership. And you know, just in my profession and James in my profession, they're intertwined, especially right now in the tight labor market, right? And you mentioned this, Michael, that you know, if you look at the safety profession right now, you can't hire somebody fast enough, because before you get them in the seat and you give them a little bit of money and you can tell them whatever you want to tell them, they've jumped to the next company. I can't tell you every week, and I talk to this with James every week. Somebody calls me and says, "Hey, can you get me somebody? Can you use your network to get me somebody?" And as soon as I find somebody, they're gone. Or I find somebody and I say, be cautious because this person is going to jump. And there's not a value on what you tell them, lip service, right? Until they feel it, right? And you got to keep them long enough to feel what the energy is of your company. I've got a really good company right now that I'm working with. They are a family-owned company. They want a good safety manager, but we can't find one because in order to keep one long enough, you got to have not the jumper, right? The labor market can't be the way that it is, because I mean, like $9 an hour, $8 an hour, $10,000, a car. I mean, those types of things are making people jump. How do we get people to feel our leadership the second they walk in the door? I guess that's the question I'm trying to ask, right? Is I'm trying to fill jobs in a tight market. I'm not a recruiter, but I'm trying to fill jobs and place people. But I feel it because I mean, I think we've talked about that. I'm a little bit of an empath, right? And I feel the energy in a room, and I feel a lot of people, they've got to, how do we get people to feel that in order to stay with a good company?
I think, like I said, is consistency. A lot of people are going to look at different places to review businesses online. There's a lot of different sites now where you can go, hey, what's it like to work here? What's it like to work here there? I think that's big because they're willing to look at that and make a snap judgment decision right then and there. So it's very important that you as an organization have a good, consistent culture and a good, consistent reputation. However, I really do feel it's on that side of onboarding. When you're onboarding, a lot of the times, man, we're such in a hurry to get somebody. We finally got somebody new and we're just willing to throw them out there right away without onboarding them in such a way to really help them to understand the culture, get them to know people. I have a company that I'm working for right now, mentoring their national safety director and their team. And as their team is growing and different things are going on, what we decided was we understood that there has to be deeper training and hands-on mentoring when you're bringing somebody on to keep them and to make sure that they know that you're actually taking care of them. And this is to your point, James, about managing and leading. Those are two different things. Managing means that I'm taking care of all these cogs, pulling all these switches, and I'm managing things if I'm managing properly. But managing tells, managing commands, leadership draws. And leadership takes more intentional time. And you've got to do that right off the bat. You've got to show your people, hey, I'm willing to help you, grow you, and support you. And it starts at onboarding. I have seen companies just onboard people, and it's literally you're just signing the paperwork so that you can get the direct draw to your direct deposit, and you're in the field. You're in the office. There's no, hey, this is who we are. There's no, hey, this is how we do things. There's no, hey, this is what to expect in the field, because we have people that we're recruiting that have never owned a car, never mowed the grass. They don't know what it's like to change their own oil anymore. Like, we grew up as
I say all the time.
Yeah, you need your oil changed? Well, you
I'm
go
like,
out there.
hey, if these cats had a flat tire, they'd have to call AAA.
They would, absolutely. My daughter's 19 years old and she went to work early the other morning and it's pouring down rain. She's in a dress, God bless her. And she calls me, hey, I hit a bump real hard, flat tire. By the time I get there, she's already getting the tire off. She's in the rain. She's a savage. She's doing it herself. And she really didn't need me. But as a dad, I wanted to be there for her in the rain, right? Early in the AM. But I'm here to tell you, we don't have that anymore. We don't have that anymore. And we can't just throw people in there. I remember coming in and I was working at an organization, I think it was about 17. They said, hey, that van needs an oil change. Go do it. There was no training. There was no onboarding, but I knew how to do it. So at 17, I got under there and I gave it an oil change, right? Because my dad gave me that training growing up. We don't have that anymore. So we need to labor hard and really analyze what our onboarding system looks like, but we can't stop there. And that's where a lot of good companies start there. Great companies don't stop there. They realize, okay, we need to indoctrinate them into the culture, help them to understand where we're not where we want to be, but we're heading in this direction. Give us grace. And now we need to train them, but we also need to give them a clear view of how do I keep going? What does that look like? And it just doesn't.
Contribution?
Yes, it doesn't stop. A lot of marketing companies, they're going that way. They're saying, oh, look, we got to go. We got to have this on, but they stop at onboarding. No, it's a lifetime. It's a lifetime of care for our people.
Man, Michael, so that really hit home with me. And I'm gonna share this with the people that I know that are looking for a safety director, and onboarding is a big thing, right? The interview process, one of my critiques of the interview process was that they talk a lot about who they are and where they come from and their depth of being a family-owned company and all of these things, right? And now that I think about it, one of the things that they do not do is when the person walks in the door, they say, okay, go do your thing. That's what you've been hired for. Go do it, right? And I do say this, and now I'm gonna put it into action, but I say you need to help somebody become the person that you're talking about fits with your organizational culture, that fits your strategy, that fits, right? And you have to follow through. And that's what you just said to me, right? It's onboarding, but it's continuing that, right? You can't just get them all in, tell them what you're about, try to instill this in the interview, try to instill it in their first day, and then let them go for 2, 3, 4 years. And then you're like, why is this not working? Right. I mean, in this case, they're not even staying 2, 3, 4 years. They're jumping, right? Because what else is there? If there's no value to me as a person, right? And there's no value to me in growth, in my leadership capabilities, in my knowledge base. If there's no growth, right? And you're not seeing me as part of this integral structure of your strategic vision, right? Then all there is money, right? Then it's just me. Then it's just me. And that's why, correct me if I'm wrong, that's why people are jumping. That's why people are jumping, is because if it's just going to be me, then it's just going to be me.
Right.
Okay. Then I mean, that's fine. Great. All that kind of stuff. But I didn't see it once I got in the door, right? So then it's just me, and I like money. So I'm going to go where the money is.
Right. I think too, it's like, one of the things that we don't contemplate too often is that lives are actually on the line here. Lives are on the line. I can't count how many times I've been a part of a job site or even in the executive world where I end up talking to somebody and find out that they're contemplating suicide, that that the job is just beating them so much that they want to end their own life. And over a job, over their job, it becomes so soulless that now that they're so beat down and life isn't moving forward for them in such a way that they're willing to take their own life. And I've been lucky enough to be able to bump into these people in life and encourage them and help them move forward. And I haven't lost one yet. And so I'm really happy about that. It really blesses me that I've been able, but we really need to get a greater grasp of what's going on here and what we're doing. It's not a business. It's bigger than that. It's not a business.
And the person that's best suited to deal with that are the folks in the middle.
I agree.
Right. In an organization, your senior leadership can set up the framework and the support mechanisms, employee assistance programs, and all those things that are out there, been around for many years. But as a guy in the middle, and I spent a large portion of my career in the middle, you're there with the workforce. I don't care what kind of CEO you have. If you have bad frontline, middle, direct report leadership, you will have high turnover.
Absolutely.
See, I don't think money always is a motivator. We go to work to get paid to support our families. Businesses are in business to make a profit. Okay. I have a safety company and I'm dedicated to bringing workers home safe from high hazard jobs. But make no mistake about it, Michael, I'm not running UNICEF over here. Okay.
Right. Want to make a living.
All right. We got to make a living like everybody else. But that's not what motivates me every day. And that's not what motivates the average worker every day. They want to do a good job. They want to be recognized for doing a good job. And if they're part of a team where they feel like they're contributing in their growth opportunities and et cetera, then they won't leave you for 50 cents more an hour down the road. But if they're just a cog in the wheel, okay, and they feel like this company doesn't care about me, we have a little downturn, I'll be the first one to get laid off. We've been asking for all these improvements around here because I know that this could do the job more efficiently and more safely, and we just get blown off all the time. Hey, no wonder those folks leave and go somewhere else. And this turnover issue is a huge issue. I see it all the time. James, I know I'm supposed to be training these folks in all these different aspects of occupational safety and health, but man, I can't put $5,000 in this dude. They're going to leave and go down the road for 50 cents more an hour. That is a fact, but it's also indicative of something else going on in the organizational culture.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
What is going on in your organization? So, I don't know that I have all the solutions. I don't know if I have all the questions, But I think it begins, I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink and Leif Babin over at Echelon Front and
So am I.
Ownership. Love those guys. It begins with me as the CEO or as the safety director, as a senior leader in an organization, understanding I have to embrace that. And it's easy to say and it's harder to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? It's a lot harder to take responsibility. It's a lot easier for me to say my guys are stupid and they don't do things and, they're crazy or whatever, than for me to accept the fact that I have not created the right organizational culture within this company to get people to a spot to where they want to stay with us.
Right.
And they want to thrive and they want to lead.
So one thing I like to ask my guys when we hire them as safety professionals, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I ask that a lot. In my coaching.
And
100%.
if you don't want to be here, that's fine with me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Let's find out what you can learn from us. One of the happiest days of my life is when I take somebody that's very inexperienced in safety and we grow that person. And next thing you know, they go off and they make a 6-figure job and they're the safety director at some company and they're
good at it.
And they're really good at it. I am like a proud papa, I am like the mother hen that's watching their birds fly for the first time. It's really cool. So getting to know your people, the CEO of a $200 million organization is not going to know every employee by name, but their supervisor should.
Everybody in their queue of influence. Absolutely.
Right.
If they're in their queue of influence, they should 100% know as many people as they possibly can.
And what motivates these folks? Because not everybody's the same. One of my leadership philosophies is this, and I hate this when they come out. I treat everybody the same. I don't treat everybody the same because everybody's not the same. Mm-hmm. Everybody is not the same. I treat everybody fair. Okay.
It just depends.
Like some people, you have to jack up. Come on, Michael. Yeah. We need you to get out there and get after it today. Yep. Some people, if you say that too, we may have to check them into the hospital and give them a Xanax the size of an Oreo.
Like, you got to slow down.
Like, oh my God, James talked to me today. He thinks I'm doing a horrible job. Yeah. Are they going to fire me and running me off? I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my kids. My cars are going to go away. I'm a horrible, terrible person. And all I did say was, hey, man, we got to get it better today. Right? So some people, it's just like in sports. You love to use sports analogies. Some people, you got to get them fired up. Some people, you got to calm down. They're too emotional, till you get a team and then you have one heartbeat. But that doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of reading, a lot of listening to people like you who are experts in the field. It is a process of getting better as a leader every day. I'll tell you, I've made leadership mistakes.
Oh, absolutely you have. So has everybody who's ever endeavored to be a leader. It's part of the learning process.
I fired people when I was younger. I used to have this attitude, man, I'll run your butt away from here, Michael, and I'll hire one just like you next week. Okay, that's a great attitude. You know what the cost is onboarding a new employee? And every time you do that, the institutional knowledge you lead, and so that leaves the organization, I've let people stay too long. I've fired people too quickly. I've not developed people as the way they should have been developed because I was a young CEO. And a lot of times I exhibited the leadership traits of people that led me in the past. And it wasn't always good leadership. I've been cussed like a dog.
Same.
Okay. Like a dog. And I took it.
From my dad.
But if I was to do that today, I'd have the EOC down here. Half my staff would quit, right? I'd be sued out of business and nobody would want to come work for James because there'd be all these Yelp, help, whatever it is online things talking about what a jerk I am. I don't even know what it is. I just know it is. we got a little local thing here. They call it's only for women. It's called Madisonville Moms. I do not want to be a feature on Madisonville Moms chat room of what a terrible person I am. I guarantee you that, right? Roll Tide.
We don't mess with those responsible moms, man. I tell you, there's no wrath like a mom scorn.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, man.
yeah.
You got to
So-
watch those mama bears.
So we go ahead, Dr. Martin.
No, go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
was gonna
James.
Say, I think the three of us recognize the problem. I think certain organizations, leaders will probably listen to this. They're getting fired up and they're saying, "Hey, I want to be a better leader. I want to do these things, but what do I do next? Where do I go to get educated? Where do I go to continue to learn in the process?" You've got a book out. Tell us about your book.
Well, my book was called Lead from the Middle, and it's built and purposely written. It's a small book with a big impact, and I did not want to add chapters just for fluff because some editor told me that the book needed to be bigger for more respect. I wasn't going to do that. I wanted to get to the point. I am a cut your throat type of guy when it comes to, like, if we got to do this, let's just do it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. And I was raised in a martial art that just took all the fluff out of martial arts and all that demystified it. And we used to just run through schools. We would just run through guys because they just didn't know how to handle us. And that's why I wanted this book to be. I wanted to be to the point, in your face, let's do this, but also have that grace and love to pull your heart along for the ride. And this book can help you whether you're a CEO or whether you're just starting out in leadership. And the important part is to take that self-responsibility. It starts there. It starts with you realizing no matter where you are in the queue of leadership, your words matter and your deeds matter. And doing them the proper way and learning how to lead on a high level is your responsibility. Dancers can only dance for so long. A 30-year-old ballerina is an old lady. She's in the prime of her life, but she's an old lady. A 40-year-old NFL player is always called the old man, right? You know, if you're in the UFC and you're in your 40s, you're doing it for the money at this point. It's really because I guarantee you're not getting a belt wrapped around you while you're 40 anymore. You're past that point of diminishing returns. But leadership is something you can do until you suck your last breath on this planet. You can continue to grow. You just said it yourself. You did things back then as a young CEO. You got to CEO for a reason. But you learned and you're constantly adapting and taking that ownership of self, saying, hey, I did things wrong and I learned from it. And now consistently you will see that I am changing. And that is so vital. I want to add something else, though, that I don't mention in the book. Too many companies, especially in America, want to do this leveraging debt garbage. And the problem with that is you're constantly feeding the monster. And as you're feeding the monster because you know you've got all this debt, you're slinging people in, expecting them to do the job and knock things out of the park. And because of that corrosive behavior that you've done to start your organization, if someone doesn't fit and knock it out of the park every week, you have to get rid of them, because if you don't, you're going to close your doors. It is much bigger of a problem and a much bigger understanding. Samurais, when they went to war, it wasn't just about the sword. When that sword was out of their hands, they knew how to defend themselves, both standing up and on the ground. But problem is that people think that if I start a business and I get debt heavy, I can do that business because I have money. And now I'm making money and I'm paying that payment and the bank says it's okay. And I'm telling you, that is not the way to run a business. If you truly want to buy into this leadership thing, you want to grow your people and take that time to grow good people and have patience with them and grow them and move them forward, that monster of debt can't be just breathing down your neck. It's got to start of having balance in the whole business of leadership. Right. It is not just leading on a high level. It's doing business right. So you can calm down as a leader, so you can step back as a leader, so you can take that breath and go, you know what? It's not life or death if I show up today because I've led in such a way. It's not life or death if this person fails because they're a good person, they're showing up every day, they're doing the job, and they need time to learn their craft. But if you're constantly in that hurry, you're constantly in that worry, you're going to be cutting people's throats every day. You're going to buy into hire fast, fire fast.
Amen, Michael Bowman. I want to thank you for coming on our show today. Michael Bowman, Bowman Legacies. Buy his book, Lead from the Middle. Look him up on LinkedIn, follow him. I think James and I know I follow him. I think James follows him too. He's got a podcast called Legacy Quest. What are you on for Legacy Quest? Are you
Apple, SoundCloud, Google, and I don't think we're on Spotify yet. So
okay?
cave,
Well, you can find us on Spotify, but you can find him on.
technological caveman here. So
Okay. Okay. Well, you can find him on everything else, and you can find James and I on the Risk Matrix on Spotify. And Michael, it has been an absolute pleasure. Bowman Legacies. Let's hear your tagline before James takes us out.
look, guys, if you're wanting to do something great for your life, what you're going to want to do is build a legacy that will far surpass your legend so you can inspire others to do the same. And that, my friends, is how we change the world.
Yes.
Like that. Like that. Well, thank you for coming on today. And thank you to all of our listeners. Again, we're on YouTube and Spotify. If you're over on our YouTube channel, at the Veriforce YouTube channel, go down there, hit subscribe, smash that like button, smash it, right? We appreciate you engaging. Your mama wants you to listen to the Risk Matrix. New episodes drop every Tuesday. And y'all keep doing what you do to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs.